Good morning, friends. So, very warm welcome in a new year and on the occasion of Makar Sankranti. In today's session on answer writing, particularly focusing on GS paper 2, and this is for UPSC Mains. So, friends, what is the task today? Is we will be going through some of the questions and their kind of model answers for the same questions, right? And I'll be sharing the slides. And the intention today is not to let you know what model answer can be of those particular questions which we have already circulated on social media. And I hope some of you might have attempted, those questions. Some of you probably might have wrote the answers of the same. Excuse me. What I will do is, or what basically we will do is, we will not only apparently touch these questions and their aspects, but we will go into details of it. And I will, at least for few questions, I will explain you in detail every point and how you are expected to write in a particular, as per the expectations of a particular question. So it won't be going to be just an apparent discussion for a question and then we will end up. So I'm going to ensure that I give you certain insights into how to write, what to write, and then how your material or the knowledge you have or information that you have can be blended, for getting more marks in a particular answer. So that we are going to discuss in detail today, right? Apart from that, let me also take this opportunity to tell you that we have conducted UPSC Mains practice test paper, right? And from those test papers, number of questions have appeared, at least not direct questions, issues from those perspectives have appeared in UPSC Mains 2020, which was conducted recently in 2021, right? So if possible, I will also tell you automatically will get to know some of the questions which I have selected for you all, right? You will get to know that like those questions or those topics, those issues have been recently asked by UPSC in its mains. There will be a separate video for answers and structures and expectations of that paper later on. But today our task is to deal with the questions which we have already circulated. So friends, without spending time, let me share the slides, or you can say the PDF kind of, and one by one we will deal with the questions, and one by one we will try and understand the expectation of questions as well as what you are expected to write in the answer. And please let me be very clear at the outset. Please understand this, that probably it won't be possible to cover every question, that is all 12 questions in 3 hours or maybe 2.5 hours, right? But I'll try to at least touch all major aspects of those questions, right? So let's begin. Let me share the slides and then we shall start. And e-learning department, I hope my connection and internet and everything is fine. There isn't any issue now. So let's begin. Yes, thank you, e-learning department, for confirming the same. So let's begin with the first question today. As I have already said, the questions which we framed and which have been circulated to you all for answer writing practice, are basically questions on recent issues, right? As you can see, the first question that deals with office of speaker, right? You all are aware of the fact that recently there have been some articles and some debates on the role of speaker in democracy and critical analysis of role of speaker of in democracy. So UPSC has asked a question on this point. You probably must be knowing that once a speaker is always a speaker. So there was a question, and they expected to write, they expected from students that they should write on the same manner. So we framed this question way back in November, right? And the students wrote answer for this particular question. I hope you all also have. You also have tried with the same, right? But before going into answer, and details of the same, let me just tell you the structure and what is expected here, in this particular question. Any one of you, if have any queries, right, I'll take your questions at the end. You can simply drop your questions in chat box. So here, as you can see, the question asks about office of speaker, right, and assumes a significant position in democracy and critically discuss the role of office of speaker in maintaining healthy and vibrant democratic procedures and processes. So now, if we talk about this question, what is expected here? Please understand that every question that UPSC puts in its mains paper, always comes with some or other type of context, right? It is not without context that they frame the question, right? And you will also find that the question itself creates a kind of context at times. As you can see in this question, right? If you read the first line, the office of speaker assumes a very significant position in democracy. Probably this line is not a question, but this line only creates a background, or this line only creates a context for your question or for the expectations of the question, right? The question basically starts from here: critically discuss. So you have to critically discuss something, right? And what is that? The role of office of speaker in maintaining healthy and vibrant democratic processes and procedures. So to understand this, what one needs to understand is, or to decipher the question, or to write exact answer, what one needs to understand is what is the focus of the question, right? So you have to break down the question in the first place in components. One. Second, once you identify a particular point to be the focus of the question, right, further you have to also decipher different aspects of that particular focus, or further you have to also decipher different dimensions of that particular focus of the question. So let's try and understand what is expected here in this particular question. So question, as I say, expects you to discuss role of office of speaker, right, in maintaining healthy and vibrant democratic process or procedures. So this is a part of a focus, and then role of office of speaker is also a part of a focus. And how do you need to see the role of office of speaker here? You have to see it critically, right? So here question clearly puts a category that it has to be a critical discussion, right? So whatever you are going to write, whatever material that you are going to put in this answer, that material must essentially be a critical discussion of role of office of speaker. And from what perspective? The perspective is how that role of office of speaker is significant for democracy. So once you get this idea clear, once you are very clear about it, then only you can think of writing an answer on the same, right? So let me tell you some of the mistakes that you may commit while writing this answer, and what generally happens. How do you interpret the question? You don't interpret, or we generally, while writing questions, we don't interpret it from the point of view of examiner's expectations. We try and interpret the question from our perspective, right? So if I'm reading this question, probably I will only see that, oh, role of office of speaker is something which is the focus, and I will simply start writing down the powers and functions of the speaker, right? And probably at the end I may link it with democracy, right? Forget about processes and procedures for a while. So writing an answer in this fashion, right, will not at all serve the purpose and won't be giving us any marks, because that is not expected. As I have come across some of the papers recently, practice papers which students appeared for, some of them also tried to simply put down all the powers of the speakers and the role of the speaker in that fashion, but hardly some could actually write in the lines of expectations of the question, right? So let me tell you how can you manage to write the same, है ना? इसको कैसे लिखेंगे हम लोग? How can you actually do this? ठीक है? So थोड़ा सा I'll be bilingual in between, as I know there are a majority of students those probably find it a little difficult to understand in English, so I'll try and be bilingual as well. So when you think of this question, as I have identified or underlined here, role of office of speaker in maintaining healthy and vibrant democracy, ऐसे समझते हैं हम लोग. Processes and procedures को थोड़ा सा बाद में देखते हैं, या फिर उसको फिलहाल के लिए बाजू में रखेंगे, ठीक है? So एक बात तो क्लियर है कि स्पीकर हैज अ सिग्निफिकेंट पोजीशन इन डेमोक्रेसी. ठीक. On this view, or on this particular deciphering, or after deciphering the question, right, what I interpret out of it is the question expects us to write about speaker, his position, his or her position in democracy, and how that position plays a crucial role in maintaining democracy healthy and vibrant. Right. Let's go one by one in the answers. These answers you may find little bit elaborate and lengthy and crossing the word limits, but then please bear with me. The reason being, we are only going to see what all expected points can you manage to put in the answer. Later on you can decide how much to write and how much not, right? So that is your choice. So let's go for the first point. So what this first point is: office of speaker is a constitutional office, right? First point, or you can say introduction. Now my question here is, why would I write this particular statement? As some of you probably may choose to write the same statement, isn't it? That office of speaker is a constitutional office. How does that matter for this question? And how are you going to mold this particular point in this question? See, the first point that one needs to ask is why a particular office becomes a constitutional office. Why, for that matter, CBI is not a constitutional agency? Why, for that matter, some other statutory agencies are not constitutional agencies, right? So, or what is so significant about being a constitutional office? So, constitutional office is expected to maintain impartiality and independence. So, Constitution protects an office, right? So that while it is functioning, while an incumbent in that office is functioning, right, looking after the responsibilities of that particular office, functions in an impartial manner, functions free and completely devoid of any influences from other institutions as well as other external agents, right? So from this point of view, from this perspective, the same point that you know, right, every one of you, those who are watching on YouTube and those who are, you know, are here today in the in the virtual lecture, you all know that speaker's office is constitutional office. How are you going to mold it for this question is our prime motive here to understand, right? So basically, when you say that the speaker's office is a constitutional office, you have to write it in a in your introduction, or maybe in your answer in a body as well, that the constitution, being a constitutional office, speaker's role remains very significant, and he or she is expected to remain impartial and neutral so far as performance or so far as functioning of the floor of the house is concerned, right? So constitutional office का importance आप speaker के role में दिखाओ. So that is sufficient an introduction. इतना sufficient introduction. You can also start with democracy, है ना? Like in a representative democracy, speaker's office assumes a significant position. The reason being, he is the spokesperson of all representatives of people on the floor or in the house, right? And such spokesperson needs to remain impartial, needs to remain unbiased, right? You can also start with speaker's office have been borrowed from British Constitution, and in Britain, speaker is expected to resign for the reason that he can maintain, you know, impartiality. However, we did not choose to do so, but still, you know, speaker is expected, the office of the speaker is expected to remain impartial or remain unbiased. See, these introductions which I talked about are a bit lengthy, right? And I know probably in 7 minutes or 6 minutes, probably you won't be able to write lengthy introductions, and one should not, right? But try and see to it that your introductions are very focused on the demand of the question, right? So a simple introduction that you can start with is speaker's office being a constitutional office. Next, speaker is guided by the constitutional provisions and rules of procedure and conduct of business in Lok Sabha. Again, right, either from first point or from second point, you can think of writing the same answer, right? Or maybe writing writing an introduction for the same, right? Next is maintains impartiality in function of the Lok Sabha through different powers and duties assigned to the speaker. Now comes the next point, or now comes the next you can say step in your writing. So first 2 points can be considered to be kind of introductions for our question, right? Third point onwards, we will now focus on how and what should speaker do, right, to maintain healthy and vibrant democracy. So speaker have been given several powers and several duties, and he plays a significant role, accepted. But then how these duties, actually reflect or actually impose a responsibility on speaker to maintain impartiality? This becomes the next question. ठीक है ना? So आगे देखते हैं. So the incumbent in the office of the speaker guards the rights. See, a very important statement here. Speaker guards the rights and privileges of members of Lok Sabha and also decides on time allotted to each individual who is willing to speak. And just a moment, this is becoming a bit clumsy out there. So yeah, so speaker guards the rights and privileges of the members of the Lok Sabha and also decides the time allotted to each individual who is willing to speak and thereby express concerns and put issues of public importance in front of House. Now, why this is again a lengthy statement, right? But as I said, we are expected to write on these lines, right? So what I will write, the speaker has certain powers, right? And one of the powers is he acts as a guardian of rights and privileges of members of Lok Sabha, all members of Lok Sabha, right? So considering this fact that he acts as a guardian of rights and privileges of all members of Lok Sabha, right? All includes those who are in position and those who are in opposition. I mean to say those who are in government and those who are sitting in opposition, right? And so if those who are sitting in opposition are not being treated same as that of or carefully as that of those who are sitting in position or government, right, then you can certainly see that speaker's role becomes biased or becomes partial, right? And such partial treatment or biased role is not expected to be performed by the office of the speaker, right? And so any individual who is willing to speak and express his concerns about public issues must be given freedom to speak, right? And who is going to do this? It is speaker's power to do this. So आपको क्या करना है ये आंसर में? स्पीकर का ए पावर, उसको आपको रिलेट करना है, बताना है कि कैसे स्पीकर का रोल इंपॉर्टेंट होता है या फिर हो सकता है और किस तरह से स्पीकर में ट्रीटमेंट देना चाहिए. ठीक है ना? सो ये एक पॉइंट है, पॉइंट नंबर 4. थोड़ा सा आगे चलते हैं और आगे देखेंगे हम लोग. I hope you all are getting the points. Okay. Now, the next point that we have here for discussion is point number 5. So what is mentioned in point number 5? Just a moment. Yeah. So the speaker also decides the agenda for discussion in meetings of the members of the House. Now, please understand that we are not here going to simply talk about what speaker is going to do, right? Because question expects you to critically discuss the same, right? You have to simultaneously talk about recent examples or cite recent examples, in this answer, where speaker has failed to maintain impartiality or speaker has failed to maintain the integrity of the position, right? And not necessarily only from parliamentary precedents or examples from parliament, but then you can certainly cite some examples from state legislative assemblies. Here I have taken an example just for the sake of informing you, and the example is of budget, right? So budget passed without discussion in last year, right? So we have a budget session and its main agenda is passing a budget and discussion and deliberation on budget. And budget being such an important instrument, in fact the most important policy instrument of the government of India, right, must adequately be given time, and it must be deliberated, discussed upon properly, and then only it must be passed. However, you can see that budget was not given a time, and then on the last day it was passed as it is, right, without any discussion. Now this becomes a bit difficult to understand in democracy. In democracy, if it is people's money, right, and if it is to be used by our representatives for benefit of people at large, must be discussed on the floor. However, the time was not allotted for the same. Of course, I know you cannot write all these stories in answer. What am I trying to point out towards is, even if you could only mention that an example, budget passed without discussion, right, and suspension of some member of parliament, right, would be really sufficient to justify the point that you are trying to make. So here we are criticizing the speaker, saying that passing of budget without discussion is actually compromising democracy. is actually compromising the faith of people in representative democracy, right? Suspension of MPs, there isn't any issue with suspension of MPs unless and until it is well reasoned, unless and until it is logically proved, it is technically or legally proved, right? But then yes, recently some of the MPs have also been suspended, right? Wherein in that event, actually, the speaker attracted heavy criticism, right? So this is point number 5. Point number 6, let's move to the next point. The point number 6 says what? Decides on bills to be a money bill or ordinary bill. Let me now tell you an important point here. When I came across those papers written by students appearing for men's, almost every single individual writing for men's this time, or those who wrote men's this time, in their practice question papers or in their practice papers, they wrote about this point, that speaker is the one who decides money bill, right? But then writing this point was not expected here in the answer, right? What was expected along with this point, you should have explained how this particular decision of money bill or ordinary bill affects democracy or democratic processes, right? It's not just you, if you simply put a line that, oh, speaker decides bill whether it is to be money bill or ordinary bill, how do you expect to get marks on that? The question does not expect you to write about powers and privileges of the speaker, right? It is expects you how those powers are, and exercise of powers by speaker is going to maintain healthy democracy, right? So what is expected, I'm just giving you an example, right? You need not necessarily write all these points which I have written here, right? You may have your own choice of points, but then please understand how you need to mold it, right? So bills to be a money bill or ordinary bill is to be a power of speaker and discretionary power of the speaker, right? Now here comes an explanation for this, which enables certain motions to put in place while discussion on important issues of public finance are under consideration in the house. For example, cut motions. Now, why I have given here the example of cut motions with an intention. And what is an intention here? The intention basically is to tell the examiner or let examiner know that I am giving an example of cut motion here and linking it with the money bill or any financial bill, right? So that role of speaker again becomes important here, or can be easily seen here. If the bill is declared as a money bill, automatically the opposition, or you can say the opposition mostly, or the members of the parliament, have right to move cut motions, policy cut or economy cut or token cut or whatever, right? And these cut motions are in fact tools by which they keep control over executives and their unnecessary spending, and thereby maintain executives accountable, or you can say answerable, to the floor of the house. And it is through cut motions, you can see, democracy is expressed, right? And so when we see that speaker decides on money bill, you cannot stop simply by putting a point that speaker decides on money bill, right? You have to further explain the fact that how the speaker, while deciding money bill, and while those procedures on money bill are going on in the house, right, or budget are going on in the house, speaker may allow opposition to start with or go ahead with cut motions. And these cut motions are really very significant. You may say that no, cut motions doesn't appear to be that significant because ultimately government enjoys majority. See, it is not about passing of cut motions here. It is about their role in simply, I would say, reflecting the concerns of people, even if you see that they are not passed against the government, as it is difficult, right? But then simply having or using cut motions and moving them is enough. Even if it is symbolic, it is enough to show concerns of people to the government, that you are actually trying to spend more than what is required, right? So of course, again, as I said, I explained point number 6, but you're not going to write all these points in your paper. That is highly impossible, I know. But I'm explaining this for the reason that आप जो पॉइंट लिखोगे उस पॉइंट को आपको मोल्ड करने आना चाहिए क्वेश्चन की डिमांड के हिसाब से, ठीक है ना? नहीं तो 90% पीपल विल बी राइटिंग दैट द स्पीकर के पास मनी बिल का पावर है, उसका कोई मतलब ही नहीं होगा। मतलब उसके लिए आप एक मार्क भी एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर सकते, आधा मार्क नहीं एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते, है ना? प्रोबेबली आप उसको अगर मोल्ड करके दिखाओ बजट एंड मनी बिल को, कि स्पीकर का रोल इसमें कैसे इंपॉर्टेंट होता है और कैसे डेमोक्रेसी एस्टेब्लिश होगी और कैसे डेमोक्रेटिक प्रोसेसेस हेल्दी रहेंगे, या अगर आप मोल्ड करके दिखा पाओ तो ही आपको मार्क्स मिलेंगे। आप ये एक चीज याद रखिए, आप सब लोग याद रखिए कि आप क्या लिखते हो और इसके साथ साथ आपके लिखने का टोन क्या है आंसर का, वो भी उतना ही सिग्निफिकेंट होगा जब हम लोग बात करेंगे मार्क्स गेन करने की। सो कंटेंट और उसका टोन, ये दोनों चीजें इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट है जब कोई हम लोग आंसर लिखने वाला है, ठीक है। So that is point number 6. I hope it is clear enough for you all, right? Let's move to the next point, and that is point number 7. Except for no confidence motion, all other motions in the House require Speaker's prior permission, and his or her role in such decisions substantially influences course of discussion in the House. Now, see again, what am I writing here? Again, what I'm doing is I said that no confidence motion. बहुत सारे बच्चे ये भी लिखेंगे शायद no confidence motion, किस तरह से रोल प्ले करता है। लेकिन आपको ये समझना है कि जो बाकी सभी मोशंस है उसमें तो स्पीकर काफी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करता है। तो फिर वो मोशंस जो है सभी, वो मोशंस को पार्लियामेंट में अलाउ करना एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट डिसीजन होगा स्पीकर का, क्योंकि वो मोशंस पार्लियामेंट के डिस्कशंस को आप बोल सकते हो डायरेक्शंस देंगे, है ना। इट विल सब्सटेंशियली इन्फ्लुएंस द कोर्स ऑफ डिस्कशन इन द हाउस। Like for example, when the demand was made by opposition to have a discussion on demonetization separately and GST separately, right? Speaker denied that decision, or that particular discussion to take place under a specific motion, right? And then he allowed it to be raised as a question, just a question in a question hour. Of course, it is equally important, but then the whole idea of motions, different motions and procedures on the floor are our idea is basically to allow opposition to constructively question the government and hold them responsible. Wherever you see that opposition is not permitted freely to question the government, where opposition is not permitted, you can say, or have not been given enough opportunity to question the government, there you can see that speaker is basically compromising functioning of democracy or democratic functioning of Lok Sabha and thereby democracy as a whole. Okay, so that is point number 7. Point number 8, speaker also decides on a matter of disqualification on the grounds of defection. This has been in recently in news, right? And you must be knowing about or have heard about Rajasthan Assembly, wherein Rajasthan, they were to be disqualified. So disqualification on the grounds of defection is also very important power enjoyed by Speaker of Lok Sabha as well as Speaker of all legislative assemblies across India, right? And then that power must be used cautiously by the Speaker and must be, exercised that way, right? So कर्नाटक असेंबली का केस बिल्कुल आप लोग यहाँ पे देख सकते हो। आप सब लोग और एक चीज याद रखिएगा कि जो भी पॉइंट आप लिखोगे ना, उसको आपको सब्सटेंटिएट करना आना चाहिए। वेग पॉइंट्स नहीं लिख सकते और उसके ऊपर मार्क्स आपको बहुत ज्यादा नहीं मिलेंगे। ये बात सही है, ये पॉइंट इररिलेवेंट नहीं है, डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन ऑन द ग्राउंड्स ऑफ डिफेक्शन, इट इज रिलेवेंट इनफ। बट इफ यू कुड साइट एन एग्जांपल इमीडिएटली फॉर सेम पॉइंट, प्रोबेबली you may get half mark extra, right? But if you couldn't cite an example, relevant example, of course, right, probably you may not get those many marks. So this is very important to understand. Whenever you write an answer, you're writing it with proper examples and sufficient data with source, to prove the fact that whatever you are writing is to the point and perfectly in line with the question, or perfectly as per the demand of the question. Next, now here till this point probably we kind of criticized, the office of the speaker. Let's move a little bit ahead and see, discussion must involve the positive side of the speaker as well, right? So in this particular question, right, so he is a collective conscience keeper, you can say, of elected representatives of the house, right? So he's the one who keeps the conscience of elected representatives of the house, right? And so that you have to mention, and thereby you also have to mention the fact that, see how effectively speaker actually, I would say, is in real sense a spokesperson of the house, and thereby a spokesperson or reflection of people at large, है ना। स्पीकर को कैसे देखते हो आप, ये क्वेश्चन के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में स्पीकर अगर हाउस का स्पोकपर्सन है, स्पीकर अगर वो लोकसभा का स्पोकपर्सन है, उसका रिप्रेजेंटेटिव बनता है, तो वो इन टर्न रिप्रेजेंटेटिव डेमोक्रेसी में स्पीकर एक बहुत बड़ा पोजीशन एंजॉय करता है। जब हम लोग देखते हैं कि रिप्रेजेंटेटिव डेमोक्रेसी में पार्लियामेंट एक इंपॉर्टेंट इंस्टीट्यूशन है, तो वो स्पीकर वहां पे रिफ्लेक्शन है, किसका रिफ्लेक्शन है, लोगों का, है ना। तो इस चीज को भी आपको लिखने आना चाहिए, या फिर आप लिख सकते हो, स्पीकर इज अ ब्रिज बिटवीन द गवर्नमेंट एंड द अपोजिशन इन द हाउस. इट इज हिज और हर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू एंश्योर floor of the house remains smooth, democratic place to exchange ideas and resolve issues of public interest, right? So yes, speaker actually performs such functions. So you may make a mention of some of the examples from past. You may make a mention of Somnath Chatterjee, or you may make a mention of recent uh, uh, examples of speakers or incumbents in the office of the speaker and the role played by them. So those examples can certainly be mentioned here in showing how speaker have also acted impartially and thereby maintain maintain the integrity of office, and also maintain democracy healthy and vibrant, right? Representative democracy as practiced in India remains hinged upon impartial role played by the incumbent in the office of the speaker, right? This is also important, right? So ultimately, role played by office of the speaker is very significant if you see the representative democracy. So probably I may end my answer on this particular point, or you may also see that, right? Or you may choose to end it on some other point, right? That's not an issue. But then for this 10 marks, I have got around 11 points here, right? So even if I could get half mark per point, right, I probably will be in a position to score at least 5 marks in this answer, or maybe 4 marks, if not 5 in this answer. So what all factors matter when I'm thinking about my score in an answer? One, content, as I said. Second, tone of your answer. That is whether your answer is in line with the expectation of the question. And third important point is all examples and then data and points to substantiate your arguments in an answer is the third important point that I think one must worry about while writing an answer, right? So if you could only stick to these 3 points, believe in me, that will at least fetch you minimum required marks, right? To go beyond that, then there are other points that we need to talk about or we need to focus on, right? So as I said, this can be in brief an answer for the question that we are talking about, right? Now let me move to the next point, or let me move to the next question here immediately, right? And I will immediately let you know what that question is, how it is different, and what is expected. So see, friends, now here in this question, second question, right? The skeleton of internet infrastructure enables the soul of democracy, that is freedom of speech and expression, to manifest in various forms, and arbitrary restrictions on access of internet puts freedom of expression at stake. Discuss this statement in the light of recent incidences on ban on internet. Right? अब यहाँ पे क्या क्वेश्चन है, क्वेश्चन को डिसिफर क्या करोगे आप, यहाँ पे 4 लाइन का एक क्वेश्चन बन चुका है ना. सो व्हाट इज एक्सपेक्टेड हियर इन द क्वेश्चन? आपको एक चीज एकदम क्लियर होना चाहिए यहाँ पे कि आप यहाँ तक, मतलब ये फुल स्टॉप तक यहाँ तक अगर आप देखोगे, है ना, तो ये तो कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्रिएट किया क्वेश्चन ने. सिर्फ क्या कॉन्टेक्स्ट था? द स्केलेटन ऑफ इंटरनेट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर enables soul of democracy, that is freedom of speech and expression, to manifest in various forms, and arbitrary restriction on that puts freedom of expression at stake. इसमें क्वेश्चन नहीं दिखा हमें अभी तक कहीं, है ना. ये तो सिर्फ एक स्टेटमेंट है, इट इज ब्लैंक स्टेटमेंट, से फॉर एग्जांपल, राइट. क्वेश्चन इसके आगे, क्वेश्चन सेज दैट डिस्कस द स्टेटमेंट. ये स्टेटमेंट को आपको डिस्कस करना है इन द लाइट ऑफ रीसेंट इंसिडेंसेस ऑन बैन ऑन इंटरनेट. अभी जो बैन ऑन इंटरनेट हमें दिखता है उसके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में आप इसको फ्रेम करो, ठीक है ना, और या फिर उसका आंसर लिखो. अब आपको क्या यहाँ पे व्हाट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड हियर इज basically you are not expected to write the scope of article 19, or you are not expected to write details of article 19 1, right? You are certainly not expected to talk about the internet infrastructure and its all details, right? Or you are also not expected to write at length about different forms of freedom of speech and expression. You are not also expected to write about how freedom of expression is important for democracy. No, basically, as you can understand from this statement, that the virtual platform or internet enables us to exercise our freedom of speech and expression, right? And any ban on internet specifically directly, puts freedom of speech and expression at stake. The ban is not on expression of Article 19 to say directly, right? The ban basically is on internet. So we have to pick some of the examples from recent past, right? And to show, that how those recent examples, are actually justifying this particular point, this particular statement, right? तो एक पॉइंट देखते हैं हमारे आंसर में हमने क्या क्या एक्सपेक्टेड है और क्या लिखना चाहिए, ठीक है? सो आंसर says that the internet has become a central today, has become so central today to our lives that it plays an instrumental role in realization of number of constitutional guarantees. आप किसी और ढंग से लिख सकते हो, जरूरी नहीं है ऐसे लिखना चाहिए, है ना? You may start with freedom of speech and expression. You may start with democracy. You may start with, internet in today's world, right? And all different forms of expression that you can actually use through the internet. So you may start it on different lines. You may also start on what do you mean by arbitrary restriction, and then link it with freedom of speech and expression. There can be number of ways, how you can start your answer, how you can write your answer. Most of you are going to start probably with Article 19 directly, and you probably may not choose to think out of box, but then that is also fine. That is also fine. No issues with that, right? So scope of Article 19 मेरा next point होना चाहिए, और उसका significance बताऊंगा मैं डेमोक्रेसी के लिए 1 या 2 लाइन या फिर 3 लाइन, है ना, maximum, है ना? Because this also will be a kind of a part of your introduction. मैक्सिमम 2 लाइन आप पकड़ लो कि आर्टिकल 19 का स्कोप क्या है और उसका क्या सिग्निफिकेंस बनता है डेमोक्रेसी के लिए. सो बेसिकली डेमोक्रेसी, rests on, or you can say Article 19, that is freedom of speech and expression, is a keystone of democracy or democratic arc, or you can say democratic dome, है ना? ये जो डोम है डेमोक्रेसी का, उसका एक कीस्टोन है आर्टिकल 19. इतना भी सफिशिएंट है. सो by any means, by any way, through whatever medium, right, which enables you to exercise your constitutional right under Article 19, if that medium, if that channel, if that way of exercise of your freedom is denied to you, if that the access to those channels and those mediums is denied to you, that will certainly result into compromising your freedom of speech and expression, right? So the skeleton of internet infrastructure and freedom of expression, उस चीज को आपको यहाँ पे बताना पड़ेगा, है ना? आगे देखते हैं सेकेंड पॉइंट क्या है. So the internet constitutes not only medium for speech but also promotes a gateway for information. The internet is not just about freedom of speech and expression, but it also a gateway, a big gateway for gathering or for getting information, right? आगे चलते हैं, आगे देखते हैं इसको आगे कैसे और हम लोग एक्सप्लेन करेंगे या फिर इसको कैसे लेके चलेंगे. तो next is right to access the internet, therefore has been seen as an integral component of citizens' right to freedom of speech, protected under 19(1)(a) and can only be restricted on the grounds which are provided in Article 19 Clause 2. अब यहाँ पे एक important चीज आपको याद रखनी है कि ये बिल्कुल सही है कि question expects you to talk in terms of or in the light of the statement that is there. But if you fail to, or if you just a moment, if you let me go back to that question again. Yes, and when you see this particular word, arbitrary restrictions, there are two words here, arbitrary and restrictions. So far as restrictions are arbitrary is questionable, but if restrictions are not arbitrary, then it is not questionable, right? So please understand, by default your question is expecting you to also justify the restrictions on ban on internet. Not justify, but at least have certain points or few points on restrictions on internet, or you can say restrictions on freedom of speech and expression. So here point number 3 precisely mentions the fact that Article 19 clause 2 also involves or also talks about, you know, those possible restrictions which can be imposed on your freedom of speech, or which can be imposed on all points mentioned in Article 19, right? So the next point is Supreme Court has recognized the instrumental value of speech, and access to news and media's role in facilitating, you know, distribution of information and knowledge played a direct role in promotion of democracy. सकाल पेपर वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया, मैंने यहाँ पे एक केस लॉ डाल दिया और ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट का स्टेटमेंट भी लिख दिया, ठीक है। अब यहाँ पे क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है ना, कि ऐसे जरूरी नहीं है कि आप स्टेटमेंट लिखो, ठीक है, लेकिन मैंने लिखे यहाँ पे ये बिल्कुल जरूरी है, अगर आप लिखोगे तो ये बिल्कुल लिखोगे कि ये मैंने कहाँ से लिया, ये कहाँ से इसका ये आता है। अब और एक बात बताता हूँ, इतना लेंथी स्टेटमेंट लिखना क्या पॉसिबल होगा? नहीं, बिल्कुल पॉसिबल नहीं होगा। आप इसका क्रक्स लिखो, जब आप मेंस लिखोगे या फिर जब भी आप प्रैक्टिस पेपर में भी आप सोच रहे हो कि मैं आई विल स्टिक टू वर्ड लिमिट, आप इसका क्रक्स लिखो, है ना, और उसको साइट करो एग्जाम्पल, ये बिल्कुल भूलना नहीं। सकाल पेपर वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया, या फिर कोई और एग्जाम्पल ले लो आप, जरूरी नहीं है यही एग्जाम्पल होना चाहिए, ठीक है ना। सो दिस मस्ट बी मेंशन्ड सो दैट यू कैन गेट द मार्क्स। द इंटरनेट प्लेज अ सिग्निफिकेंट पार्ट इन ensuring the protection of right to health, liberty, livelihood, and therefore ought to mean that accessing the web must be considered as a fundamental, as flowing out of constitutional rights guaranteed under 14, 19 and 21। अब देखो यहाँ पे वो थोड़ा आगे चला जाता है ना, 14, 19 एंड 21, ये तीनों आर्टिकल से उसको हमने लिंक कर दिया, सिंपली टू एस्टैब्लिश द ऑथोरिटी ऑफ दैट स्टेटमेंट, है ना। तो हम लोग अभी भी वी आर स्टिल डिस्कसिंग अबाउट वन एस्पेक्ट ऑफ इट, दैट हाउ इंटरनेट banning internet is going to compromise different constitutional guarantees, you know, or is going to compromise different rights which are guaranteed under the constitution, है ना। अभी भी इसी के ऊपर बात कर रहे हैं। So first point, 5 points we talked about how internet becomes essential for, you know, exercising our constitutional guarantees and freedom and etc. Now we will change the tone of our answer. Now we will enter into second phase of our answer, or you can say in second part of our answer. Now, what is that second part? You please notice here very clearly now that various laws under which, just a moment, yes. So various laws under which the internet ban becomes reasonable. This is going to be the next point, right? Or next, at least few points here, right? Why so? Why do you need to explain? Why do you need to mention this? Again, a very simple reason. The reason is your question mentions arbitrary restrictions, right? Not just restrictions. So you have to also show that how the government is also empowered, or executives are also empowered to put the ban on internet or maybe on freedom, right? That is reasonable restrictions we certainly need to talk about, right? So the next paragraph will talk about these points. So IT Act 2002, then temporary suspension of telecom services, you know, public emergency or public safety rules 2017, that is telecom rules bola jata hai unko. These telecom rules were formed through a power prescribed on union executives by section 7 of Indian Telegraph Act 1885, right? And telecom rules require executives, among other things, to provide, very important point here, to provide a reasoned order, you know, when it directs the withdrawal of internet. So why at the first place this point is required? One, and second, what are we writing? See, अब अगर आप यहाँ पे देखोगे, मैंने पूरा इंफॉर्मेशन दे दिया कि वो टेलीकॉम रूल्स है या फिर टेलीग्राफ एक्ट है ना, या फिर आईटी एक्ट है, लेकिन सिर्फ उसके पॉइंट्स मेंशन करके मैं यहाँ पे रुकूंगा नहीं। मैं आगे क्या बोलूंगा कि ये जो रूल्स है, सभी कोई भी रूल रहे, या फिर आर्टिकल 19 क्लॉज 2 की भी बात करें हम लोग, ये जो कुछ प्रोविजंस है लॉ के या फिर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के, ये बिल्कुल एग्जीक्यूटिव को ये पावर देता है कि वो जाके फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच एंड एक्सप्रेशन को बैन करे या फिर इंटरनेट को बैन करे, ऐसे समझ लीजिए, ठीक है ना। लेकिन वो आर्बिट्ररी नहीं होगा, ठीक है। वो किस तरह का राइट देता है? वो राइट देता है जहां पे रीजनड बैन ही हो सकता है ना। सो ये आप प्लीज समझ लीजिए कि मैं अभी भी ये इंफॉर्मेशन जो लिखा हूं वो भी हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं, वी आर ट्राइंग टू सी इट फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ एक्सपेक्टेशन ऑफ एग्जाम और एक्सपेक्टेशन ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन. So I did not just for the sake of writing I did not just for the sake of writing put these acts here, right, to fill the material in my answer. No, I wrote these acts and then I tried to link it with one of the important points in these acts. All such acts which allows government to put restrictions on fundamental rights, must stand to the test of reasonableness and must stand to the test of justness, right? आप चाहो तो इतना बड़ा पैराग्राफ बिल्कुल ना लिखो इसके लिए, है ना? You can simply say in one statement, following are some of the laws or statutory provisions which allows government to put ban on internet, right? और वो सिर्फ आप टेलीकॉम रूल्स 2017 लिखो, आईटी एक्ट 2002 लिखो एंड टेलीग्राफ एक्ट 1885 लिखो, फुल स्टॉप, राइट? आगे लिखो इमीडिएटली, एक लाइन में होगा ये पूरा, आगे लिखो. However, all these laws expect government to be reasonable while it puts ban on internet, or must have a very strong undeniable reason to put ban on internet. If you could simply write one extra line in this, the point becomes complete and you can certainly score marks here, right? आगे चलते हैं. So India ranks, now here I am coming again back to the recent examples, or I will also put some material from the point of view of what is happening in recent times. So India ranks at the top among countries with the most internet shutdowns, accounting for 334 of 196 documented in 2018 and 91 in 2019. So this is Internet Freedom Report or Internet Freedom Index, उसकी report का ये data है. So वहाँ पे bracket में लिखना है immediately, है ना, which report and what is submitted, right? The most protracted internet shutdown in India was enforced in Kashmir in recent time. I'm sorry for this mistake in spelling here, right? So it is in recent time. You can see the longest ever ban on internet was in Kashmir, right? अब जैसे ही मैं कश्मीर की बात कर रहा हूँ, immediately I am coming to an example. फातिमा सरीन वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ केरला. केरला हाई कोर्ट का एक जजमेंट था इस केस में, है ना. द कोर्ट recognized that the case to access to internet today is essential because it grants people an avenue not only to information but also host of other services, है ना. So I immediately gave an example here to prove the fact that how internet becomes essential, right? Next, the court held that it enhances individual freedom, right, in granting people a liberty of choice in determining what they want to read, see, and hear, in determining what kind of information they wish to access, and more than anything else, this is very important wording of Kerala High Court, more than anything else, in limiting the government's ability to control persons' private life. So a very interesting point that has been mentioned here. So you can see, again I'm saying, you need not to write all these points, right, as it is, but you can simply, on these lines you may try and write an answer, right? Just a moment. Yes. So that is point number 10. Point number 11, therefore any blocking, now after these 10 points being put across, right, now I am coming to a kind of conclusion, right? So therefore any blocking of internet violates fundamental rights. As a result, to enforce the restriction on internet, the action of the state must be based on compelling reasons and must necessarily be made constitutionally sustainable manner. अब मैं क्या लिख रहा हूँ कि yes, recently ऐसे कुछ हुआ तो है बिल्कुल, right? And so because blocking of internet results into compromising not just freedom of speech and expression but all other or most of the rights, fundamental rights, any action so taken by the state must be necessarily within the constitutionally permissible limits. If not, then such action shall be declared as void, or you can say such action results into compromising what to say, democratic model, or you can say democracy, right? So there is recent case again, Anuradha Bhasin versus Union of India, and this case was precisely for Jammu and Kashmir, and wherein Supreme Court gave a judgment, and then finally the government of India had to, open up or allow internet access to internet in Jammu and Kashmir, though they smartly enough, only allowed 2G access, not 4G. Right? But then this was the recent case on which Supreme Court gave a judgment. right? So you can certainly mention the same, right? Then modern dental college versus Andrest versus a state of Madhya Pradesh, वो एक केस था, है ना? Then you have Puttaswamy case, wherein test of proportionality was again reiterated by Supreme Court, है ना? ये चीजें आप लिख सकते हो, अगर आपके पास वर्ड्स है, टाइम है, तो आप बिल्कुल लिख सकते हो, लेकिन एटलीस्ट ये जो एग्जाम्पल, रिसेंट एग्जाम्पल्स है, वो तो आपको लिखना ही है, उसके लिए आपके पास कोई दूसरा ऑप्शन नहीं है. If you want to score marks, good marks, then you have no other option but to write these things. And then lastly, I have also mentioned about United Nations and its declaration as internet as a fundamental right in 2016. Let me again tell you all that, see, this all, certainly crosses the word limits, no doubt, right? My intention here is not to stick to word limits. My intention here to in detail tell you that how can you write, right? Of course, you can make it short and then convert it into 150 words. That's not really very difficult. But if you have material, if you do not have material, right, you cannot even write 100 words. So these are different ways, or these are different points on which you can actually write an answer, right? Again, I'm telling you that this is not a model answer. As I have at the outset only, I said that the intention is not to give you model answer, but intention is basically to tell you model way of writing an answer. You can consider it that way, right? So I hope I'm clear on that point, right? So that is question number 2. Now let's talk about question number 3. Let's discuss third question. So here, third question is about NGOs, right? Here again, the expectation from question is very different. So let's see what is the expectation here. Just a moment. Yes. So what is the expectation then, and what this question is all about? NGOs are product of freedom of association, and in recent times have emerged as vital facilitator in development process. Bringing them under purview of RTI Act would be a step towards further making development process democratic. Example, again for 10 marks. Now, when students wrote, and if some of you have tried to attempt this question, as we circulated the question paper, I guess 2 days ago, right? I hope some of you probably might have tried to write an answer. Most of you, or most of the students, they in test papers, what did they do? They focused on NGO, and not as a freedom of association, but NGO in development process, right? And simply started writing about how NGO contributes in development process, and with all examples, right? And hardly few of the students, those who wrote in mains test series, talked about right to information, right? Again, not with the context, or not from the point of view of NGOs, right? Or they're bringing NGOs under RTI, and how would it result into development process, making it more transparent. So basically, students keep writing on the points which they know, so and they keep expecting marks. This has happened several times. What is expectation here of this question? What is the focus? The focus basically is, let's see what the focus is. NGOs on one hand, RTI on other hand, and democracy at center. That means, can we see bringing NGOs under RTI, or bringing NGOs under RTI will result into making democratic process more और डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस मोर डेमोक्रेटिक. सो क्या आप एनजीओज को आरटीआई के अंडर लाने के बाद डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस को और ज्यादा डेमोक्रेटिक कर सकते हो क्या? ये क्वेश्चन है, सिंपल है ना. और ब्रिंगिंग देम अंडर आरटीआई इज अ स्टेप टुवर्ड्स. क्वेश्चन ने बोल दिया कि ये बिल्कुल डेमोक्रेटिक होगा. आपको एग्जामिन करना है, क्या सच में डेमोक्रेटिक होगा? अगर होगा तो किस हद तक, और नहीं तो क्या क्या उसके लिमिटेशंस हो सकते हैं, क्या उसके साइड इफेक्ट्स हो सकते हैं, है ना. सो फोकस को क्लियरली समझिए, फोकस को यहाँ पे एकदम क्लियरली समझिए. ये बोला गया है यहाँ पे, वुड बी अ स्टेप टुवर्ड्स फर्दर मेकिंग डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस मोर डेमोक्रेटिक. ये एनजीओज को ये आरटीआई के अंदर लाने के बाद ऑटोमेटिकली ही उनका बोलना है, ये क्वेश्चन का बोलना है कि डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस डेमोक्रेटिक हो जाएगा। एक स्टेप ले लिया हमने टुवर्ड्स डेमोक्रेटिक प्रोसेसेस, ठीक है ना। आपको करना है एग्जामिन उसको, whether in real sense it will become democratic or not. And of course it will, no doubt. Yeah. But there must be some flip side or maybe the other side of it, right? So we have to also analyze that. We have to also see, or we have to also put it in the answer, right? But then most of the students, what they did is they simply focused on role of NGOs in democracy, role of NGOs in development process. Almost 90% of them wrote more than half of the part of their answer on the number of NGOs with their examples and where have they contributed and how have they, I would say, are contributing in development process, right? That was not expected. So what is expected then? Let's see. देखते हैं आंसर में क्या एक्सपेक्ट। इन डेमोक्रेसी गुड गवर्नेंस एंड पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट कैन बी बेस्ट ensured only with the involvement of various stakeholders and institutions, including the participation of citizens and civil society. ये इंट्रोडक्शन का एक एग्जांपल है ना। आपका इंट्रोडक्शन इससे और कुछ हो सकता है। आप एनजीओ से स्टार्ट कर सकते हो, है ना। आप डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस को पकड़ के उससे स्टार्ट कर सकते हो। आप आरटीआई को लेके भी स्टार्ट कर सकते हो। ऐसे कुछ जरूरी नहीं, आप फ्रीडम ऑफ एसोसिएशन को लेके भी स्टार्ट कर सकते हो। जैसे फ्रीडम ऑफ एसोसिएशन enables people or citizen to come together. One of the expression or one of such, you can say, platform where people come together is NGOs, right? And NGOs, this collective effort of people through NGOs further makes development process more democratic. आप लिख सकते हो बिल्कुल इसको, आपको बस आगे जाके उसको एग्जाम के क्वेश्चन के डिमांड के हिसाब से मोल्ड करने आना चाहिए, ठीक है ना। चलिए आगे चलते हैं। इस एग्जांपल में देखेंगे क्या क्या चीज है। सो NGO stand for non-governmental organization. Term NGO refers to organization that is independent from government and works to promote the well-being of everyone in society. ठीक है ना। ये एक आप समझ सकते हैं, ये भी एक ये हो सकता है, इंट्रोडक्शन हो सकता है। Typically NGOs work to protect the environment, fight corruption, stop government misusing their powers or abuse of vulnerable groups, and protect our liberties and etc., right? So the key principle adopted in India's Right to Information Act, I shifted immediately now to RTI here because that is what is the focus of the question. Okay. So key principle adopted in India is that citizens own the government and hence all information with the government belongs to them. Also, when government gives substantial funding to any private organization, they have right to get information from them. हमारा पैसा हमारा हिसाब, है ना। So section 2H of RTI, see here I have mentioned it, of RTI, RTI Act provides that the non-government organization, substantially financed directly or indirectly by the funds provided by the appropriate government falls within the meaning of public institution. So section 2H जो है ना RTI का, वो बिल्कुल ये बताता है कि NGOs को RTI के स्कोप में लाता है ना। क्यों? Ultimately, wherever you see that NGOs are being funded, NGOs are being given funding by the government directly or indirectly, right, must fall within the meaning of right to information. मैं आपको ये भी बात बताऊं कि यहाँ पे वर्ड जो है ना substantially, दिस पर्टिकुलर वर्ड substantially, इसके ऊपर भी डिबेट हुआ है कोर्ट में कि substantially का मतलब क्या है और उसको कितना फंडिंग आएगा तो हम लोग सब्सटेंशियल मानेंगे। 50% एंड अबव होना चाहिए, 30% होना चाहिए, कितना होना चाहिए, है ना, या फिर इट शुड बी इन टर्म्स ऑफ रूपी, राइट। सो सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज सेड दैट सब्सटेंशियली का मतलब जरूरी नहीं है कि वो 50% ही हो, 60% ही हो, ऐसे हो सकता है, या फिर कोई एक फिक्स्ड अमाउंट हो, है ना, ऐसे जरूरी नहीं है। ऐसे हो सकता है कि कोई एनजीओ का टोटल कैपिटल जो है या फिर अमाउंट ऑफ मनी जो है वो 10,000 का कैपिटल है, उसमें से 5,000 अगर गवर्नमेंट दे रहा है, या समझ लीजिए 8,000 अगर गवर्नमेंट दे रहा है, तो बिल्कुल उसका काउंटिंग होना चाहिए, है ना। तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज मेड इट वेरी क्लियर। आप पब्लिक इंस्टीट्यूशन को कैसे देखते हो, तो इस तरह से देखना चाहिए, है ना। तो आरटीआई का सेक्शन 2H जो है उसने फिर एनजीओ को उसके स्कोप में लिया हुआ है। सो एनजीओज वर्क हैंड इन हैंड विद द गवर्नमेंट फॉर प्रमोटिंग डेवलपमेंट एंड एक्टिवली कंट्रीब्यूट इन ब्रिंगिंग अफर्मेटिव चेंजेस इन द नेशनल लाइफ, ठीक है। ये भी एक स्टेटमेंट हो गया। आगे चलते हैं। However, there is the nexus of pseudo NGOs and administration or government which brings NGOs under suspicion. अब यहाँ पे हम लोग NGO के critical examination की बात कर रहे हैं, या फिर examination की बात कर रहे हैं, है ना? We accept the fact that NGOs actually contribute in development process, right, along with the government. But then further we are saying that there are certain NGOs, pseudo NGOs, which have a nexus with the administration or the government agencies, and that will further result into, or that in fact results into, bringing NGOs under the domain of suspicion, right? So role of NGOs as a facilitator of development or democracy with examples. आप ये भी लिखो, कितना लिखोगे आप? एक, दो, तीन, या दो या तीन एग्जांपल्स दो, should be sufficient, not more than that, right? आपको क्या लिखना है? रोल क्या है एनजीओ का एज अ फैसिलिटेटर ऑफ डेवलपमेंट एंड डेमोक्रेसी, विथ एग्जांपल्स दे दो, है ना? अब इसमें आपको आगे चलते हैं, फिर मैं आपको बताता हूँ, है ना? सो ये बिल्कुल आपको एक्सप्लेन करना है. नेक्स्ट, it acts as an informal link between government agencies and public, works for trust building. This is an important point to be mentioned here. Why? See, what is question expecting? Question is expecting RTI के अंदर अगर एनजीओस को लाएंगे हम लोग तो क्या डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस और डेमोक्रेटिक होगा. RTI का क्या इंटेंशन है? RTI actually tries to make it sure that the governing agencies and government business of government remains transparent, right? तो NGOs को क्यों लाना है? Because probably we have a suspicion that NGOs are not transparent enough and using government's money or public money for their functions or their work, right? So आपको बिल्कुल वो लिख सकते हो आप यहाँ पे, as this point number 9 clearly mentions that it is an informal link between public and so it is necessary that there should be a trust building. Public or government, public between government and पब्लिक के बीच में एक इनफॉर्मल लिंक है और यहाँ पे ट्रस्ट बिल्डिंग की जरूरत है, ठीक है ना? और वो ट्रस्ट बिल्डिंग कब हो सकता है? व्हेन यू कैन सी दैट दिस ट्रांसपेरेंसी इनफ, है ना? सो आरटीआई, bringing under RTI may result into building the trust and thereby making development process more democratic, right? So people will approach NGOs more if NGOs are transparently functioning, if NGOs are accountable to people, right, as they are using people's money, right? People will certainly approach NGOs and they may find NGOs as a platform wherein their queries are getting resolved. If not there, at least through NGOs, through those platforms, they can actually get their queries and their issues resolved, you know? So though NGOs do not enjoy same legitimacy as it is claimed and enjoyed by formal government institutions, still their presence in public domain makes democracy more participative and vibrant. ये बिल्कुल सही है कि NGOs सेम लेजिटिमेट राइट नहीं एंजॉय करते, सेम लेजिटिमेसी एंजॉय नहीं करते जैसे गवर्नमेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस एंजॉय करते हैं, है ना? लेकिन फिर भी अगर एनजीओस पब्लिक डोमेन में मौजूद है ना, तो अगर उनको आरटीआई के अंदर हम लोग लाएंगे तो और ज्यादा हो सकता है कि उनकी लेजिटिमेसी बढ़े, है ना? और वो और ज्यादा प्राइवेट और ज्यादा पार्टिसिपेटिव बने और ज्यादा वाइब्रेंट बने. पीपल विल स्टार्ट अप्रोचिंग देम मोर. सी, द गवर्नमेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैव लिमिटेशन टू व्हाट एक्सटेंट कैन दे एब्सॉर्ब द रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ पीपल, right? So instead, NGOs are very good. NGOs is a good platform constituted not by government but by people themselves, right? And they can come together and they can volunteer for getting their issues resolved, and they may act as a pressure group on the government. As you must be knowing that a recent farmer protest, if you take an example of farmer protest, different organizations which are now protesting against those laws passed by the government of India, right, basically are kind of platforms wherein they are coming together on their own, right? So bringing all such NGOs under the purview of RTI would probably further result into making it more transparent. ठीक है, आगे चलते हैं. Though NGOs, next is 11th point, right? So keeping above mentioned points in mind, bringing NGOs under RTI Act would further lead to strengthening the participatory process in the governance by bringing more transparency in functioning of NGOs in particular, and sorry for this spelling mistake here, and civil society in general, right? More participation from vulnerable sections and sections hitherto not adequately represented in mainstream government institutions will find these platforms, right, trustworthy and easier to access for their concerns. And recent examples, along with आपको ये बिल्कुल देना, along with foreign funding, deregistration of NGOs by Supreme Court and etc. These examples can be given. Now here is one more point which I would like to tell you, and that is, you also need to mention mention about the other aspect, other side of RTI. Bringing them under RTI is actually, in a way, trying to put some restriction on NGOs, right? Because NGOs is a product of freedom of speech and freedom of association, right? And now, being a product of freedom of association, being a product of freedom of association, one needs to understand the fact that how NGOs, bringing them under RTI may also result into putting some restrictions on them. Getting it? So you can also put that as a concern in your answer, or you can say that bringing outrightly all NGOs under RTI may also result into hampering their functioning at times, right? But would certainly result into bringing more transparency in their transactions, financial, and would also result into bringing people more closer to the NGOs, right? This will also lead to depoliticization, politicization of NGOs, and political influence over NGOs, would probably come down to a certain extent. Yeah, so let's move to the next question, and the questions in chat box I'll take at the end, right? So Shiv, I will take your question, but at the end. Yeah. So let's move to the next point. And here again, I'll simply, tell you the focus, and we will immediately move to the next question. So with population growth, the shrinking water resource, the different efficient management of water in general and groundwater in particular is need of an hour. In the light of above statement, examine the potential of Atal Bhujal Yojana in dealing with this crisis. बहुत सिंपल क्वेश्चन है, इसमें कोई ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम्स नहीं है. What you need to do is, I'll just explain the focus and then we'll move to the next question. Atal Bhujal Yojana, what are the provisions here? Right? What are the provisions of Atal Bhujal Yojana, and whether these provisions of Atal Bhujal Yojana will result into dealing with the water crisis. बस इतना लिखना है आपको इसमें, बाकी कुछ नहीं, right? कुछ बच्चों ने शायद, मतलब some of the students, those who appeared for the test, they talked about some data. Of course you can, recently the water crisis and things of that sort, right? ये बिल्कुल आप लिख सकते हो. जैसे आप यहाँ पे भी देखोगे कि कुछ डेटा मैंने यहाँ पे दिया है, ग्राउंड वाटर सिचुएशन इंडिया में क्या है, यूनेस्को क्या बोलता है उसके ऊपर, इंडिया का डेटा क्या है. सो नीति आयोग रिपोर्ट आप पॉइंट 4 में देख सकते हो यहाँ पे, नीति आयोग रिपोर्ट को भी हमने मेंशन किया हुआ है यहाँ पे, राइट? 21 इंडियन सिटीज. दिस इज सिंपली टू स्ट्रेंथन योर आंसर, उसको और ज्यादा स्ट्रेंथ देने के लिए. क्या होना चाहिए स्ट्रक्चर? आइडियल स्पीकिंग, इफ यू आस्क मी, जो आंसर राइटिंग सेशंस जो अभी हम लोग कर रहे हैं उसमें सिर्फ इतना ही डिस्कस करना चाहिए, है ना. फीचर्स ऑफ स्कीम, इस तरह से आप पॉइंट्स लिखो, ये पॉइंट्स पे आप आंसर लिखो. आई हैव इंटेंशनली, एटलीस्ट फॉर फ्यू आंसर्स, आई हैव इंटेंशनली, आई एम शेयरिंग एलॉबरेट आंसर्स विथ यू सो दैट यू गेट एन आइडिया. ठीक है. So yes, so these are some of the points that you can think about while writing, an answer for Atal Bhujal Yojana and its linkage with or its potential for dealing with water crisis. What students have done is they have only written the water crisis in India and have not precisely talked about Atal Bhujal Yojana. क्या कारण है इसके पीछे? अटल भूजल योजना पढ़ा ही नहीं है फिर आपने, फिर शायद, है ना. तो क्या किया जाएगा फिर? ये सिर्फ ये बताया जाएगा कि इंडिया में वाटर क्राइसिस कितना सीवियर है. दैट्स इट. अब इसके लिए मार्क्स कितने मिलेंगे? सिंपल है, 0 मार्क्स मिलेंगे आउट ऑफ 10. सो क्योंकि द क्वेश्चन एक्सपेक्ट्स यू टू डिस्कस अबाउट अटल भूजल योजना and its potential in dealing with the water crisis. I hope you are getting it, right? So it is, please understand, हम लोग क्या लिखते हैं, what we actually write in our answer paper is really very important. So unless you are prepared very well, unless you have enough of material with you, right, you shouldn't strive to, or you shouldn't unnecessarily try and start writing the answers. Okay. So yes, that is about Atal Bhujal Yojana. Then I will in brief, tell you this question as well. What this question is, it is more focused on an issue in India, and that is clinical trials in India. So examine the legal framework. At the first place, it is examination of what legal framework dealing with what clinical trials in India, and bring out shortcomings, right? Bring out shortcomings and suggest measures to improve the same. So question here expects you to first examine what is a legal framework dealing with clinical trials in India. One. Second, it also expects you to talk about shortcomings and give measures, right? So there probably can be 3 paragraphs here. One, dealing with what all legal measures do we have for clinical trials in India. एक paragraph हो सकता है. Second part, what all shortcomings do you have in that particular in established or already existing legal framework, right? And third part will be about what improvements do we need to do, right? That's it. What are people writing? What are students writing on this particular question? They are writing all details, almost every single detail about what clinical trials are. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Recently it was in news for almost a year, right? There were several articles that you might have came across, right? But the question is not asking about what clinical trials are and how are they being performed. Laboratory में क्या होगा फिर लोगों के, this is not asked in a question. Question expects you to talk about legal framework and not about clinical trials. ये clinical trials का question नहीं है, question है legal framework के ऊपर बात करो, है ना? Most of the students have focused on this and so have not scored the marks, right? So this again is a simple explanation for this question, right? I'll be sharing these model answers with you all, so you won't find it difficult, right? So देखो यहाँ पे कुछ principles भी दिए हुए, principles governing clinical trials, है ना? So ये principles आप लिख सकते हो. I have also shared some of the case laws here. कुछ amendments है वो भी मैंने यहाँ पे दिए हुए. क्लिनिकल न्यू ड्रग्स एंड क्लिनिकल ट्रायल रूल्स 2019 के है. आपको इसके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, दिस वाज इन न्यूज रिसेंटली, उसके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में आपको ये आंसर लिखना था. आई होप यू माइट हैव ट्राइड टू राइट इन द सेम मैनर. इफ नॉट, then you can think of doing the same. Now here comes some of the suggestions wherein I have tried to see that show that कुछ क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स, इंटरनेशनल क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स और स्टैंडर्ड जो है उसके कुछ एग्जांपल्स हम लोग सजेशन के लिए दे सकते हैं, ठीक है ना? जहाँ पे क्लिनिकल ट्रायल नेटवर्क यूएस के लिए हम लोग देख सकते हैं, टीयर्ड स्ट्रक्चर है ईयू में, उसका हम लोग एग्जांपल दे सकते हैं. इंडिया में भी हमारे पास बिल्कुल है, लेकिन इट इज नॉट दैट प्रोफिशिएंट इनफ. So what improvements needs to be done, can be mentioned here. So straight away 3 paragraphs and story ends there. A very simple and straightforward question. You can write this answer unless and only if you have an clear information on clinical trials and rules and regulations on clinical trials in India. If you don't, you cannot even think of attempting the question, because writing on what clinical trials are, right, would fetch you only 0 marks, nothing more than that, right? So that in brief was about 5th answer. Yeah. Next is about 6th. Now it is about demographic dividend, right, which seems to be a missed opportunity. And do you agree with this, right? Second part of the question is, what are the impediments in reaping the potential of demographic dividend? Straightforward, simple question. It is not very difficult as such to understand, but then let's see the possible structure that you may have. Right here, I have intentionally made the introduction a little bit, elaborate, right? And you can see here what demographic dividend is all about, right? And its age and etc. All those details have been mentioned here, right? Now comes a question: what should be the first part of your answer? The first part of your answer, after explaining what demographic dividend is, you must talk about whether it is a missed opportunity or not. So instead of directly coming to a conclusion that it is a missed opportunity and there is no hope, one should try and strike a balance here, because your next part of your answer is going to talk about impediments, and simultaneously, even if question does not expect you to do so, but then you have to write your suggestion. So you can say the way forward that you need to put in. So instead of directly saying that it is a missed opportunity, one must one may write in an answer that if an expeditious action is taken, then probably the potential demographic dividend and its potential can still be reaped and reaped to our benefits, right? And then the issues which are considered to be major impediments in reaping the benefits are as follows. So second paragraph may be of this sort, and then you can convert, or then you can switch to the next paragraph wherein you will be explicitly discussing about issues. So as you can see here, issues I have talked about here, and not in detail. I've just given a list of the issues which you on your own can elaborate later on, right? So you have low level of human development. I said UN report. Immediately I will substantiate the same. Then informal nature of Indian economy, then jobless growth, then policy paralysis, right? That is structural issues in policy, or policy is contradictory to each other, right? Then you have two policies are contradictory to each other. Then you have structural bottlenecks in economy. Then old laws and framework governing labor force or investment culture in India. Then you have global integration, of, just a moment. Then a global integration of economy demands global competitive skill force, right? So role of educational institutions. These are some of the points by using which you can write this answer. Role of NGOs in skill imparting, role of self-help groups in generating employment opportunities, right? And then you can give some of the examples of recent initiatives of government of India. Skill India लिख सकते हो आप यहाँ पे, बिल्कुल है ना, बिल्कुल लिख सकते हो। और उसके बाद आप वे फॉरवर्ड बताओ। जैसे इसमें ही कुछ पॉइंट्स है ही जहाँ पे आप वे फॉरवर्ड की बात कर सकते हो। अब बहुत बार मैं ये देखता हूँ कि आंसर्स में आप एनजीओज, सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप, चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट, डोनर्स, इनको आप रेफर नहीं करते हो। या फिर डेमोक्रेसी, आप पंचायती राज इंस्टीट्यूशंस को भी आप बहुत बार ये देखा जाता है कि आप जहां जहां रिलेवेंट है वहां पे मेंशन नहीं करते हो। So please see to it that NGOs and self-help groups are coming as a part of your answer wherever required, wherever necessary, right? It is really very important to see to it that your answers are becoming more comprehensive, right? And still they are very, I would say, to the point and crisp, right? So to ensure that, you have to have enough material and you have to have good ability to write in a specific language, right? So that's about, question number 6. Now I will move to the next question, that is question number 7, right? Let's understand the focus here. Any meaningful attempt to reform the labor laws must fully comport with values such as human security, dignity, recognition, human capability, and human flourishing. In the light of the above statement, critically discuss, recently contemplated labor law reforms in India. अब देखो यहाँ पे एक आपको ये समझना है कि क्वेश्चन शायद यहां से आगे ही है, क्रिटिकल डिस्कशन ऑफ रिसेंट लेबर लॉ रिफॉर्म्स, है ना। लेकिन आप उसको रैंडमली नहीं कर सकते। अब आपको क्या करना है, ये कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्रिएट किया गया पहले से स्टेटमेंट में, है ना। आपको रिसेंट लेबर लॉज को ह्यूमन सिक्योरिटी से लिंक करना है, ह्यूमन डिग्निटी से लिंक करना है, रिकॉग्निशन से लिंक करना है, ह्यूमन कैपेबिलिटी से, ह्यूमन फ्लरिशिंग से, इससे लिंक करके आपको बताना है। So what a student, what student did in practice paper, they talked about these acts in detail. Some of them have mentioned the provisions as well, right? But still they couldn't score the marks. Why? Reason is very clear. The question is not expecting from you to elaborate on, the recent labor law reforms. No, question expects you to critically discuss the labor law reforms, from the point of view of these values: human security, dignity, recognition, capability, and flourishing, right? So if you could not link these things with these values, you will not get marks, So let's see what this answer says. So answer talks about a general introduction which you can very easily write. इतने सारे लेबर लॉज हमारे पास थे, उसको हमने क्लब करके अब हमने एक ऐसा लेबर कोड बनाया है इस टाइप का, and this code will now these 4 laws will now serve the purpose, making it more simplified. है ना? Now comes the focus, right? What is that shortcoming of the course? इस कोड के क्या क्या शॉर्टकमिंग्स है? सो आई हैव गॉट अराउंड 13 पॉइंट्स हियर इन द शॉर्टकमिंग्स, है ना? सो इंडस्ट्रियल रिलेशंस बिल जो है, कोड बिल जो है, राइट, एम्पावर्स एम्प्लॉयर्स टू यूनिलैटरली क्लोज द एस्टैब्लिशमेंट एंड रिसर्च वर्क्स विथ नो ऑब्लिगेशन टू पे फॉर कंपेंसेशन. यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो डिग्निटी की बात कर सकते हो, सिक्योरिटी की बात कर सकते हो, एंड सो इट डज नॉट रिकॉग्नाइज दिस और डज नॉट गो इन लाइन विद द ह्यूमन सिक्योरिटी, है ना? टिल रिसेंटली बिजनेस विद ओवर 300 एम्प्लॉयज could lay them off without securing government's approval. This limit has now been reduced to 100 employees. So again, it is compromising the security of employees and security of employment, right? One most worrisome aspect of IRC bill is that it provides for the fixed term of employment contracts, which will enable employers to hire and fire workers arbitrarily. So arbitrary फायरिंग एंड हायरिंग हो सकता है. ये ऐसे सभी चीजें यहाँ पे, इफ यू सी दिस पर्टिकुलर point or these 13 points, you'll find that all these 13 points basically talk about shortcomings. Shortcomings क्यों लिखे गए यहाँ पे? Why I have focused on why we have talked about shortcomings. The reason is this particular part, when we are talking about shortcoming, we are actually criticizing, we are trying to find out the lacunae, or we are trying to find out the critical aspects of the act, right? One, ठीक है, आगे चलते हैं. So all these points, 13 points, are basically shortcomings of the code, right? Implications of proposed changes क्या होंगे, तो उसके implications भी मैंने यहाँ पे दिए हुए. So you can see the proposed changes of labor law would help providing additional protection to labor force. It would have the following implications, है ना? Plight of migrant workers is out, workers is out there for all to see. Expanding the definition would provide them with more protection. हमने क्या बोला? We will be discussing this, right? So the question by default must talk about some positives, right? If you don't, right, then that won't be a critical discussion, right? And not just critical discussion and not just positives, but you also have to suggest some measures, right? Similarly, expand the coverage of ESIC, right, to all the districts and all employees with 10 or more workers would lead to a refinement in health facilities or of the worker. The concept of national floor wage would reduce the regional disparity in minimum wages. The mandatory issuance of an appointment letter would also help in formalization of labor force. अब देखो ये सभी points जो है ना, these are positives, these are positive aspects of that particular of these recent labor law reforms. So हम लोग critical aspect भी बात किए, हम लोग उसके positive aspects भी बात करेंगे, क्योंकि critical discussion by default will involve both sides. But please ensure that you don't simply put it in under the title negatives and positives, or you don't simply put it under the title pros and cons. Instead of that, you can use different headings, है ना? जैसे यहाँ पे implications of proposed changes, है ना? So you can certainly mention those implications, and at the end, then you mention that certain shortcomings, can be taken care of to ensure that the labor law reforms in real sense become more labor friendly, as well as they protect these values like human dignity and security and human flourishing and all, right? So that can be certainly mentioned in the conclusion. So I have got around 8 points here for the second part of answer, and then I had around 13 points here for the first part of answer. For how many marks am I going to write this? I'm going to write it for around 15 marks. So considering the fact that 15 marks of question, right, I have got 250 words, probably I'll be able to at least, if not write in detail, I'll be at least able to highlight all these points which are mentioned in the model answer, right? So again, as I said, your focus should be sticking to the question. Your focus should not be simply putting across the material as much as you can manage, right? Yes. So let me now move to the next point, and that is next question. Question number 8. OTT over the top platforms in India have recently adopted a code for self-regulation of online curated content providers to regulate the issue and provide redressal for consumer discrepancies. Bring out different issues involved in regulating OTT platforms in India. 15 मार्क का क्वेश्चन है, इसको थोड़ा मैंने ज्यादा एलोबरेट किया है मेरे ख्याल से. Yes, it has got number of points. इसमें क्या करना है आपको? पहली बात तो OTT के बारे में बात करना है. There was one very interesting paper this time, and that fellow did not know anything about OTT, but went on to write elaborate answer, right? And that was altogether irrelevant an answer. So I gave 0 marks, right? But then, see, मैं आप सब लोगों को एक बात बताता हूँ कि आप लिखने का प्रैक्टिस जब करोगे, आप जो राइटिंग प्रैक्टिस का एक क्या बोलूँ मैं कि आपको बहुत एक एप्रीहेंशन होता है शायद कुछ लोगों में कि नहीं, राइटिंग ही चालू करना चाहिए, मुझे लिखना चाहिए, मुझे आंसर्स लिखने आने चाहिए. आप लिख सकते हो, लेकिन कोई भी लिख सकता है, लेकिन आपको अगर पहले पढ़ के उतना इंफॉर्मेशन कलेक्ट करना चाहिए, है ना. और लिखने का मतलब ये नहीं कि आपने 1000 क्वेश्चंस लिख डाले, है ना. आप लिखो 1000 क्वेश्चंस, लेकिन वो टू द पॉइंट लिखो, उसको प्रॉपर फोकस करके लिखो. ऐसा नहीं है कि 1000 क्वेश्चंस अटेम्प्ट कर लिया आपने तो बिल्कुल जाके आपको एकदम फुल मार्क्स मिलेंगे. जैसे मैंने किसी एक एग्जांपल शायद आपको अभी थोड़ी देर पहले दिया था. एक बंदे ने पूरे के पूरे 20 क्वेश्चन अटेम्प्ट किए, है ना. उसको टोटल आउट ऑफ 250, यू नो, ही हैज गॉट 18 मार्क्स or 17 and a half or something of that sort. Why? It's not the reason that he was not sincere. Probably he was, and that's the reason probably he wrote all the answers. But every answer, you know, he wrote was without context and without content, right? It was only kind of bluffing, and so that won't fetch any marks, you know? So just for the sake of writing, if you're going to write and if you're going to practice the questions, that won't help, right? So you have to be very clear about why are you writing answers and what do you actually mean by mains answer writing program, right? That answer writing program involves all sort of things, right? Not just content, not just focus, but information and everything, right? So OTT, over the top platforms, answer here is a kind of introduction, right? I have mentioned issues here, right? So functional substitute, then you have not level playing field, right? Then interoperability of security, then international position, or you can say international jurisdictional issues, right? Then you have economic effect of such regulations if we try and control the over the top platforms, right? Then you have security and privacy related issues. रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्क में क्या है इंडिया में? तो रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्क में आप देख सकते हो कि जनवरी 19, you know, a code of best practices for online curated content was provided in January 19, ठीक है, which was signed by some of the major OTT players like Netflix, Hotstar, Woot, and Z5, and you know, so this is the recent example, or you can say recent information. Code provides for transparent disclosure system by classification of content in distinct categories, right? Age appropriate, age inappropriate, right? Then code further provides for complaint redressal mechanism, whereby OTT platforms were required to appoint an individual or a team to redress the consumers concerns, right? So that is also been mentioned. So if you go through all these points mentioned here, you know, so you will find these points, these 13 points, they basically talk about what are the present issues in clinical trials, in regulation of OTTs, right? But then here comes the 14th point, which is really very important. Now you all know that TRAI is an important body in India which looks after the issues related to telecom industry, right? So TRAI has been empowered under Section 11(1)(a) of Telecom Regulatory Authority of India Act 1997, you know, to make recommendations on on these matters. Now you may say that do we really need to put these points in answer? Probably not. But because question asks you what are the impediments or what are the concerns or issues, you know, in regulating OTT, you have to by default mention about TRAI. You know, you may ask a question, how TRAI and OTTs are linked. The reason is TRAI creates or provides an infrastructure required for OTTs to run their content, right? So if you see the internet infrastructure, if you see the telecom related infrastructure, then you have telecom companies which are providing that physical infrastructure, for all these over the top or OTT platforms, through which they provide us content, right? So OTTs and telecom industries cannot be seen differently. They have to, particularly while dealing with this issue, or must be seen together. So any regulation or any regulatory body which is going to look after them, or look after the regulation or issues arising out of OTT, must focus essentially on interests of telecom companies as well as that of OTTs. So issue of jurisdiction and etc. will automatically fall within the scope of this answer, right? So that was, again, as I said, an answer for or what was expected here in OTT. This was a straightforward answer, or you can say straightforward question. Now comes an interesting question here. Probably this may take us a little bit time, so I'll go into details of this again, right? So the dramatic rise in public interest litigation, this was again the same type of question was asked into 2021, right? And some of the questions from comprehensive tests which we have uh, uh, which we gave to the students appearing for men's, here some of the questions from comprehensive test have also been asked, right? So dramatic rise in public interest litigation and courts acting as sentinel on QWife has provided or proved to be a game changer. However, this intrusive jurisdiction had to be tempered at some point, as one of its uninvited byproduct is institutional imbalance. Discuss. Interesting hai prashna. Now, what has student done? Let me first tell you, and then we will move to the focus of the question, and then I'll explain. You may ask me a question like, आप ये हमेशा क्यों बच्चों ने क्या लिखा हुआ है वो क्यों बता रहे हो? मतलब student, those who are aspirants of the exam, there is reason, because most of you are going to commit same mistakes, right? So it is basically the purpose of the session is to avoid those mistakes and to ensure that you write on expected lines. So if we see this particular question, what have students done is they have, precisely speaking, talked about what PIL are and what PIL, how PIL, public interest litigations, have proved to be a game changer. That's it. And their story, whole answer ends there, right? So please understand again that this question, does not expect you to talk about PIL in detail, right? It talks about, in fact, the power that is, you can say, assumed by the power that is, assumed by the Supreme Court, and as Supreme Court is practicing a kind of intrusion, right? That is becoming problematic, or you can say that is creating certain issues of separation of powers, right? So the question does not focus on public interest litigation. Question का focus है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट इस jurisdiction को use करके या फिर इस तरह का jurisdiction को use करके एक level के beyond जा रहा है ना? So by, you can say, relaxing the locus standi rules, Supreme Court is going and entering into executive and legislative realms, right? So the question is that, ठीक है ना? अब चलते आगे, इस क्वेश्चन को समझते हैं थोड़ा सा और इसका आंसर, ठीक है ना? आंसर देखिए, and this is bit elaborate, right? So I know that probably for some of you, this would be too long to write an answer in the mains, right? So please don't worry. We will be only like, this is an extra information, and you can write on this line and try and make your answer more short, or I would say as precise as possible, right? So let's start. So the traditional judicial function is to decide disputes, right? First ever PIL. So जुडिशरी का क्या फंक्शन है? डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन है ना? सो फर्स्ट एवर PIL, popularly known as the under trial prisoners, Hussain Khatun 79 वाला केस है, was filed on 11th of January 1979 and was a novel interpretation of Article 32, which was done by Supreme Court in that particular case, right? Several other PILs that came to be filed after the by other members of public, to protect the fundamental rights of people who can account on the account of poverty or disability or lack of access to the courts and etc. Right? Given remedial purpose of PIL, checks and balances of became somewhat unnecessary. So आप ये चीज को समझ लो, यहाँ पे क्या बोल रहे हैं हम लोग, PIL ने क्या किया, checks and balances, they became somewhat unnecessary. The principle of locus standi was relaxed, and so automatically court prescribed the manner under PIL in which one may actually you can say approach the court. So what is mentioned here, what do you need to understand here, right? Basically PILs resulted into, or PILs went on to allow court to keep certain rules of procedure aside, and then allow people to come and approach the court directly, whether irrespective that they themselves are the victim of some things which they are raising in the court of law, or they are raising that issue in court of law on behalf of somebody who cannot access to the court, who cannot come to the court, right? So that is basically the first point here to be mentioned. You can squeeze it and make it a very short. The court could investigate into the allegations and set up committees to establish the facts or monitor the monitor or administrative situation. Now here comes an issue. What court could do in this case? Court could actually establish a kind of investigative committees and establish fact finding or you can say monitoring agencies, right? That creates an issue here. The reason is our constitution, though not strictly following the idea of separation of powers, but subscribes to the theory of checks and balances, wherein it is expected that every single organ of a state is or shall remain within the parameters of its own jurisdiction and not going beyond it and not entering into others' jurisdiction. So here court, when goes on to establish a committee, investigation committee or something of that sort, as you must be knowing that recently the court has constituted a committee for looking into the matter of farmers' laws and the protest that is going on, right? There is a criticism on the court, right? And court establishing such committees and investigating the matter goes beyond its limits. Of course, one may say that court has constituted a committee and court can do so because it is their right and I'm select power and to investigate the matter. So in the interest of complete justice or natural justice. But the issue is repetitive use of PIL and then repetitive use of such powers results into compromising the idea of checks and balances, compromising the idea of separation of powers. So should there be a vacuum in given field of law or policy, the courts could legislate or lay down policy de novo, right, where the court felt it is necessary to do so to protect the fundamental rights. जहां कोर्ट को लगता है, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल विशाखा जजमेंट का एक एग्जांपल ले लो आप यहाँ पे, court will lay down a policy. So whether laying down policy of this sort or laws or regulations or guidelines of this sort is within the broader scope of court's powers or not is the question. One may say very easily yes, right? But basically lawmaking is a function of the parliament and court is not expected to do that, right? However, court has done it several times. Now, not just this, but then judicial role thus transcends adjudication to assume new functions. है ना? So क्या functions है? Including those of social reformer, जैसे विशाखा जजमेंट की बात की हमने, या फिर कुछ और इस तरह के सती के ऊपर भी बात कर सकते हैं, दूसरे जजमेंट्स के ऊपर बात कर सकते हैं. एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर, कोर्ट खुद ही अपना एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर बना हुआ है ना. एंड इन्वेस्टिगेटर, कोर्ट खुद इन्वेस्टिगेशन कर रहा है, जैसे आप इसमें देख सकते हो फायर क्रैकर बैन, राइट? See, the question here is not whether it is correct or not. The question is whether it is within the scope of judicial parameters or judicial, or whether it is within the scope of judicial jurisdiction or not, right? Or an investigation, a monitor and ombudsman, all necessitated by the obligation of Supreme Court to protect the fundamental rights. फंडामेंटल राइट्स का स्कोप जैसे जैसे बढ़ता गया, आर्टिकल 32 का भी जैसे बढ़ता गया, राइट, आपको दिखेगा कि कोर्ट हैज एंटर्ड इनटू ऑल दीज डिफरेंट सॉर्ट ऑफ रोल्स, राइट, एंड कोर्ट इज प्लेइंग दीज रोल्स these days. However, the Supreme Court then went further to include within its jurisprudence or jurisdiction, right, or jurisprudence of PIL, cases relating to, say, environmental pollution, corruption, electoral reforms, or simply maintenance of rules of law, as a result of which the court now has got tremendous power. So court dhire dhire, you will find that slowly court went on to expand its PIL, right, and the scope of PIL started increasing, started going beyond what is prescribed by the constitution, and finally resulted into environmental pollution, corruption, electoral reforms, and so on and so forth. All such different actions or all such different topics have been considered by court, under its jurisdiction, right? So that is an important point to be remembered here. हम लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं कि whether and to what extent does this result into compromising the balance of power, right, or checks and balances. However, the Supreme Court then went further to include these many points. Went further to include within the jurisprudence of PIL these issues or maintenance of rule of law, as a result of which it has got larger power now. Given that each individual judge has his or her beliefs, conviction, value systems, and even varying affections for PIL, the exercise of judicial power would necessarily result in subjective and hence arbitrary exercise of power. Very important point. हम लोग जो क्वेश्चन को फोकस कर रहे हैं उसका क्रक्स यहाँ पे है, बट यहाँ तक पहुंचने के लिए हमने ये सभी पॉइंट्स ऊपर लिखे कि these are the points, how are we coming to this particular issue. So because judges and their beliefs and their convictions and their approach or perspective of PIL, right, need not necessarily be same, right, and so in reality you'll find that exercise of judicial power would necessarily result in subjective and hence arbitrary exercise of power. ये बिल्कुल हो सकता है कि जो exercise of power है by Supreme Court through PIL would become arbitrary, right? Moreover, such expansion, आप देखो आगे, moreover, such expansion or private interest or with an extraneous motive, right, sometimes also for publicity, this has further resulted into wastage of court's time and resources. तो देखो हमने बोला कि एक साइड में कोर्ट बिल्कुल फंडामेंटल राइट्स के प्रोटेक्शन के लिए ही काम करता है और उसी के लिए ही PIL आए थे, लेकिन इसका excessive use or you can say misuse results into actually compromising the time of the court, as well as it creates a kind of imbalance in the functioning of the government, or you can say functioning of the state. So imposition of cost for misuse of PIL, right, did not really prove to be deterrent, for unscrupulous litigants. कुछ लोग, those who are simply filing it for the sake of say popularity, right, they have been imposed with fine by the Supreme Court as well as by some of the high courts. However, that has not deterred people from approaching the court through PIL, right? So as regards the development of PIL, the court in Balwant Singh Chawfal divided PIL into 3 phases. कोर्ट ने खुद ही अपना डिवीजन किया, PILs का 3 different types or you can say phases में. Phase first क्या डील करता है? प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ फंडामेंटल राइट्स से. Phase 2 क्या डील करता है? It deals with cases relating to protection of and preservation of ecology, environment, forest, and marine life, and etc. And phase 3 जो है, it relates to the issues dealing with transparency, probity, and integrity in governance. So basically, अब देखो ये पूरा पैराग्राफ है, आप इसको सिर्फ 3 लाइन में लिख सकते हो, है ना? अगर आपको ये केस याद नहीं है तो आप सिर्फ इतना लिखो, on PIL, court has decided that it will categorize it into 3 categories. Category 1, dealing with fundamental rights, PIL dealing with fundamental rights. Category 2, PIL dealing with environmental issues. And Category 3, PIL dealing with issues in governance, transparency, and probity. Full stop. I have given you details here, but you can simply write it in probably 1 or 2 lines maximum. right? So court has also, we can see here, has also taken efforts, to make it more rational, right? With the expansion of scope of PIL since 1980s, the PIL movement has got hijacked over the decades by middle class interest, and such cases, pertaining to ban of smoking in public cases, catching stray cattle, and so on and so forth. है ना, ये चीजें तो हो चुकी है. इफेक्टिव वे फॉरवर्ड क्या हो सकता है? कंटेनिंग PIL to cases of fundamental rights of marginalized groups and disadvantaged sections of society for whom remedial jurisprudence of PIL had been originally conceived. So way forward हम लोग ये देख सकते हैं कि कोर्ट खुद ही अपना जुरिस्डिक्शनल दायरा जो है PIL का वो कम करे. ये लिखेंगे हम लोग, बात खत्म है. These many points, are more than sufficient if we are talking about, this PIL, and PIL have made it complicated, the whole idea of balance of power, right? So there is issue with balance of power and can certainly be managed here. Yes, then we have a simple question I'll take for our discussion. 10th question, as we are going to share the model answers, you can write it later on, right? This 10th question deals with tribunals, right? You must be knowing that recently there was a direction by the court on tribunals, right? So let me take an example here, or this question, a simple one, the category of question wherein you have in one question we have got 3 questions, right? So let's focus on this. So what is interstate council? A very simple thing, and then explain functions of interstate council, and then do you agree that the interstate council has fallen short of its capacity to take advantage of its potential envisaged by makers of the constitution to harmonize Indian federalism? देखो यहाँ पे ना अभी 3 क्वेश्चंस है अलग अलग, और आप इसका वेटेज कैसे डिसाइड करोगे? क्या हर एक क्वेश्चन को 5 मार्क का वेटेज जाता है या फिर उसका वेटेज अलग अलग रहेगा? तो आप क्लियरली समझ लो कि व्हाट इज एन इंटरस्टेट काउंसिल, ये 5 मार्क के लिए तो डेफिनेटली नहीं है ना. एक्सप्लेन द फंक्शंस ऑफ इंटरस्टेट काउंसिल, अगेन इट इज नॉट फॉर 5 मार्क्स, राइट? सो प्रोबेबली यू कैन सी दैट, डू यू एग्री, यहां से लेके, है ना, लास्ट पॉइंट तक. सो दिस थर्ड पार्ट ऑफ क्वेश्चन carries around 10 marks. And if an answer, right, your answer must give weightage to these points, or as per demand of the question, है ना. आप सिर्फ इंटरस्टेट काउंसिल और उसका जो फंक्शंस है उसी को एलाबोरेटली लिख दो तो आपको ज्यादा से ज्यादा 5 में से मार्क्स मिलेंगे, है ना. सेकंड पार्ट जो है यहाँ पे, दिस थर्ड, just a moment please. Yes, so the third part of this question is the most important part of question on which you are expected to write, right? So what I have done here is I have given details of what the interstate council is, and there are 11 points in total, and these points actually deal with how interstate council has, if at all, has fallen short, then how has it fallen short, and for horizontal and vertical federalism, how interstate council is very significant, right? And then what needs to do, so when it comes to improving the body for interstate council is concerned, and these sections have also been given here, right? So you can again read that once it is shared with you all. Okay. And then the last question is again about a same type of question, wherein what do you mean by Bodo Accord, right? What is it? Then key highlights of the Bodo Accord, which you can directly write in point, and how the recently signed Bodo Accord is different from the previous versions in the resolving issue, right? So again, in this answer, you can see that very clearly there are 3 sections. What is Bodo Accord all about? What are key highlights of this Bodo Accord, right? Which you can see A, B, C, D, and then just a moment. And then the last part, wherein you can see, yes, so whether it is really very different from the previous versions or not. So I have mentioned that no, not a radical departure as such from previous version. There are only few points which are important to be mentioned and which I have mentioned here. So friends, in brief, these were the things which I wanted to discuss with you so far as answer writing is concerned, right? Important points which, for every answer we have talked about in detail, right? At least for some answers we have talked about in detail, and other parts, will be shared with you very soon, so that you can actually use them and think of writing an answer on the same. So in today's session, we tried to cover as many questions as we can manage to. As at the outset itself, I said that every question with those details we won't be able to cover, but then we will at least we will try and stick to, or we will try and at least touch to major aspects and focus of every question. Right? Last two questions like Bodo Accord and Interstate Council were comparatively very simple to identify the focus and write accordingly, right? But then few questions like PIL and speaker and then NGOs and internet infrastructure, those questions were a bit difficult to decipher, right? Wherein the questions and its focus was not very explicit, very clear, right? So where you see the focus of the question is not explicit, where you see the focus of the question is not directly mentioned, there you need little bit more efforts to decipher the focus, and thereby you have to then according to the demand of the question, you have to write the answer. Let me tell you, for you all in general, while we write answers, right, please ensure the fact that you write relevant answers, right? You first draft the structure of every answer, and then you search for information as per the demand of the question, then put that information in the structure, and then create that model answer. Initially it will take time for you to write this in this fashion, right? If you find it very difficult to start with introduction, don't bother about introduction, right? Just put a title, introduction, and don't write anything in it, right? Then main body, and then aspects that you are going to write in main body, and then conclusion. Start with this primitive phase of, I would say, or primary phase of, I would say, drafting the structure of answer. पहले आप स्ट्रक्चर तो ड्राफ्ट करो उसका, उसके बाद हम लोग सोच सकते हैं कि उसमें क्या लिखना चाहिए और कौन सी चीजें होनी चाहिए, उसको किस टोन में लिखना चाहिए, है ना, और वो कैसे फिर क्वेश्चन को जस्टिफाई करेगा, है ना, आपका आंसर कैसे क्वेश्चन को जस्टिफाई करेगा. सो ये स्लो प्रोसेस है इवोल्यूशन का. ऐसे नहीं होगा कि आपने आज ले लिया और आज तक कभी लिखा नहीं था और आज सडनली ले लिया और आपका आंसर एकदम you got a very beautiful and very good answer. No, that won't happen. That will take time. Things will take time, right? So be patient and slowly keep working on this direction, on this particular direction, and I hope this will help you a lot, right? So I guess we shall stop here for today, right? And
subscribe the Unique Academy's YouTube channel and press the bell icon for latest updates and videos.